From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. We start with news that a U.S.-bound migrant caravan is continuing on foot after Veracruz's governor abruptly withdrew his offer of free buses to take them to Mexico City. For a brief moment, Governor Miguel Ángel Yunes offered thousands of weary migrants a glimmer of hope when he announced that he would provide scores of buses to carry them. But then, Yunes abruptly rescinded his offer, blaming a water shortage in Mexico City for his decision. And so, with their hopes deflated, around 3,000 migrants, including young children, continued northwards the U.S.-Mexican border.
The government officials are playing games with us. We have dignity, we have rights. But the fact that they say one thing and promise buses and then time comes, they come with a new idea. They are just playing with us. Tell the truth, that's all. That's what we want. We're going to keep on walking. We're pushing forward, not one step back, always ahead. If it's true they want to bring us buses, all the better.
The problem is we were all duped thinking buses were coming. We thought it would be safer. That's why we are screwed. In the end, people are going together because we are all going in a caravan. But being duped is no good. It could have been a nice help, especially for the kids, but it didn't happen. So onward we go.
And earlier on Friday, the migrant caravan arrived in Veracruz state in Mexico.
From as early as 6 a.m., migrants resumed their journey. Families facing exhaustion and illness are pushing through the perilous stretch.
It has been tough and difficult, but here we are, trying to maintain our strength and willpower until we get to where God wants us to reach.
They reached the agreed point, but they decided to keep on walking after realizing it was just a small village and they still had some fight left in them.
We are hungry. We are carrying our children. Look at them. It cannot be that they aren't conscious.
Our president has already said he will put us in jail for 2 years if we go back to Honduras.
Most of the migrants have learned how to summon their inner strength far beyond the usual. This and their emotional resilience is what keeps them going. And they say there is a good Samaritan along the way to help carry them on their journey.
It has been dangerous to reach this point and also to come with no money. We have come with nothing and survived thanks to people's charity.
However, there are some who try to stop them. They say federal police force them to get off trucks, telling them that it is for their own safety. No matter what, they say nothing would stop them. On Friday, they endured the perilous 140-kilometer journey. Over the past 2 weeks, 2 Mexican states offered them water, makeshift shelter, clothing, and hope.
Guatemala's President Jimmy Morales has arrived in the U.S. to discuss the migrant caravan. He will also visit a migrant shelter which temporarily houses children who have been traveling alone in the caravan. Later, he is going to Honduras to meet with Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernández. Morales is also scheduled to visit El Salvador, where he'll meet with Vice President Oscar Ortiz. Former Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass has completed his 14th day of hunger strike. He is in prison in La Tacunga jail, where he started an indefinite hunger strike to protest against his transfer to the jail from a prison in Quito. Ecuadorian activist Marisol Bowen said, in Ecuador, the limits of independence have been broken and that he has been imprisoned without proof. Many have accused the government of Lenín Moreno of political persecution against those who worked for the previous government of Rafael Correa. Last week, 7 people, including 2 journalists, were given preventive detention in Quito. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has authorized the use of 4 million petros and the country's gold reserves as part of the National Savings Plan. He also spoke about the ongoing U.S. sanctions against Venezuela.
Venezuela is currently certifying 32 gold mines. which means that the country will soon have the second largest gold reserve in the world. We have a very important gold plan that aims to reach record revenues next year of more than $5 billion per year. We are regularizing the future of Venezuela's gold reserves in function of the integral development of the economy. If someone is being hurt and affected by the criminal and crazy sanctions of the government of the United States against Venezuela, it is the private sector and entrepreneurs. They have frozen their accounts and their financial transactions. The sanctions of the US empire are destroying the Venezuelan private sector. They are corralling and destroying the national private capital.
With both Alberto and Keiko Fujimori in prison and an approval rating of less than 20%, experts believe Peru has seen the end of Fujimorismo.
After only being 40,000 votes away from becoming Peru's next president, Keiko Fujimori is now behind bars. She is accused of being at the heart of a money laundering organization. She joins her father's footsteps, who is also imprisoned. Experts say Fujimorismo is going through its worst crisis.
People realize the type of people they truly are, that is, a criminal gang. Many Peruvians avoided this truth. Some even supported them under the tale that Fujimori beat terrorism, that he beat inflation.
The decline in their popularity and political downfall is evident. Their seats in parliament have dropped from 73 to 57 due to resignations and other issues.
Fuerza Popular's leadership has lost all power. They can barely enter Congress again. Keiko will never again run for president. Fujimorismo is over.
Fujimorismo has been accused of using their power in Congress to push laws for its own interests and to paying off corrupt Congress members, judges and prosecutors. According to the latest poll, 79% of Peruvians consider Keiko Fujimori as the most corrupt politician, while 82% say they wouldn't vote for her.
Why will I vote for them? I know who those people are. No way I will do that.
Seeing this corruption scandal play out, I would not put my country in danger.
After the scandal, the news, they have lost all credibility.
With the entire Fujimori family under investigation, the loss of seats in parliament, and with the public losing confidence, many believe Fujimorismo is nearly over.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is on an official visit to Dominica to celebrate its 40th Independence Day. Upon his arrival, Arreaza held a bilateral meeting with the Dominican Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. On the 3rd of November of 1978, the Caribbean nation gained its freedom from the British rule and became an independent republic within the Commonwealth. Fighting between the National Liberation Army, ELN, and the Popular Liberation Army, EPL, is causing people to flee en masse in the Catatumbo region of Colombia. At least 60 families were displaced from their homes after fighting between both groups restarted on Thursday. Violent clashes have reportedly left at least one dead and many more injured. Authorities believe at least 50 civilians were caught in the crossfire. The mayor of Montevideo, Daniel Martinez, has visited workers from the gas union who have been on a hunger strike for the last 17 days in Uruguay. These strikes started when Montevideo Gas fired 21 workers as part of a company restructure that could lead to more layoffs.
Situations like this hunger strike will always awaken our solidarity. We have great concern over the uncertainty these workers are going through. Despite talks with the company and attempts by the government to intervene, the situation is not changing. Still, we will do what we can to help.
It's been 15 months since the disappearance and death of Santiago Maldonado in the province of Chubut in Argentina. The documentary about him, called Santiago's Way, has screened at the National University of La Plata 100 times.
15 months have passed since Santiago Maldonado disappeared, an incident that's etched in the hearts of Argentines, and that's reflected in the documentary Santiago's Way.
There are difficult times for Argentina and for Latin America. We need to come together and share our culture. We have used cinema as our canvas to raise this topic, to tell Santiago's story, a story that remains an open wound for Argentinian society.
A whole crew came together to tell a story that's full of unanswered questions. The documentary's popularity has surprised those who made it. The film is in opposition to the mainstream media, who haven't been clear about the motives behind Santiago's death.
There is no doubt Santiago's case amounts to a forced disappearance that happened under Mauricio Macri's government. The mainstream media's reporting has been highly doubtful. They continue to say to this day that Santiago Maldonado drowned.
Over 40,000 people have watched the documentary across 100 screenings in movie theaters, trade unions, and universities. The interest led to a conversation about the 49-day disappearance and death from this artisan from the Mapuche community, who suffered from police repression.
This is an important artistic expression. It's a major work of investigative journalism that condemns the ongoing crimes of the government. It points a finger at government impunity in the case of Santiago Maldonado.
This was a forced disappearance. This tragedy won't remain as a question mark with no answer. It uncovers the type of regime we live under.
The hegemonic media and their journalists have become facilitators for these crimes. This was a political killing.
Human rights organizations and social movements hold Mauricio Macri's government responsible for the death of Santiago Maldonado. In a country that has seen over 30,000 people disappear, Santiago's way leaves many unanswered questions.
A former Al-Shabaab commander has been cleared by a Somali electoral body to run for political office in the forthcoming regional elections, a year after he ditched the Islamist insurgency group. Mukhtar Mansour announced his entry into politics last month, but was banned by the central government due to his past. But the chairman of the Somali electoral body has said he is eligible to run. An attack by gunmen on a bus carrying Christians in central Egypt has left at least 7 people dead. The attackers opened fire on the bus carrying Christians on their way from visiting a monastery. Security sources have confirmed that 7 people have been killed, while 7 more have sustained injuries. Coptic Christians make up 10% of Egypt's population and have become frequent targets of Islamic State jihadists. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched a specialized police unit to tackle gang violence in Cape Town neighborhoods. The anti-gang unit aims to displace and weaken the power of violent gangs in the country. In September, thousands of Cape Town residents took to the streets to protest against gang violence in their neighborhoods.
But today, our communities working in partnership with the South African Police Service are declaring that today they are taking back their streets. Today we say the streets of Hanover Park no longer belong to the gangsters, they belong to the people of Hanover Park.
Countries across Latin America and the Caribbean have been celebrating the Day of the Dead. Giving offerings is an important part of these celebrations in Mexico. They are placed in public spaces and houses as an ancestral tradition.
The students killed 50 years ago in what is known as the Tlatelolco Massacre have been honored with this offering at Plaza Santo Domingo.
UNAM has organized this tribute to commemorate the young, brave people who changed the history of our country.
This is a tribute made by students to condemn all the brutality and police abuse during 1968. It is outrageous that people behind those crimes are not in prison.
Every year, the 1968 student movement takes part in these ancestral rituals, which are an expression of Mexican culture.
This is something that is taught to us since we are born. When we are kids, we place the offerings with our grandmothers. This is a very nice tradition.
At the end of October, many houses, schools, museums, and public squares place their offerings for the Day of the Dead, the most important tradition of Mexican culture. in the University of the Claustro de Sor Juana, the offering was dedicated to famous poet Sor Juana and Mexican icon Frida Kahlo.
There were two strong women who fought for freedom, for women's rights, for access to education, and for freedom of speech. We pay tribute to two exceptional women.
This pre-Hispanic tradition commemorates all the people who are no longer with us.
Each one of us are part of this tradition. Each one of us have different perspectives about what death means.
The ritual goes beyond offerings. There are parades for the Day of the Dead, decorated with skulls and even the popular Catrina, which symbolize the presence of death in our lives.
And also in many regions of Bolivia, citizens have been welcoming the souls of the dead with parties and feasts.
They wait for their dead with parties, music, and a lot of food and drink. They've come a long way, so they are tired, hungry, and thirsty. In these rural highlands, the Aymara priests summon them with a song.
Amay Wawita, where are you? Where have you been? Where have you gone to work? I tell you to come. The Amaura is calling you.
They set up shrines that feature the Tantawawas, the Aymara word that means children of bread, which represent the deceased. There are also horses, star, the sun, the moon, the stars, all made of bread, and all things that will help them to return and live again.
Every 1st of November, we recite at noon our souls. We have them the whole afternoon and until noon the next day. When we stand them off, we go to the cemetery to pray and we make our souls go away happy because we put everything they like on the table.
In Aymara culture, death is only the passage to another dimension.
We are in a constant relation with the dead. It's not that they die and that's it. In the Aymara world, there are 3 dimensions. The Acapacha, where we are, the Mancapacha, with all the resources below the ground, and the Alajpacha, that it's above and has nothing to do with heaven or hell.
This is a party with several stages. These include preparing the food, the symbols made of bread, choosing the best fruits, making the drinks, and choosing the sweets and decorations. The whole family is involved.
I always tell my children about this custom. They have to keep this tradition alive in the future, because if we don't talk to them about it, they won't. And this custom that has arrived from abroad, Halloween, is not good for us. For me, it's not good.
The reunion lasts 24 hours. At midday on the 2nd, they say goodbye to the souls with music. The plentiful food is taken to the cemetery and shared with those who say a prayer for the soul of the deceased.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Trump administration has announced that it's reinstating all sanctions on Iran that were removed under the 2015 nuclear deal with the Obama administration. The sanctions will take effect on the 5th of November and will target both Iran and countries that trade with it. It will cover Iran's shipping, financial, and energy sectors, with more than 700 entities being affected. However, the U.S. will give temporary waivers to 8 countries, allowing them to continue importing oil from Iran. The supreme leader of Iran said the whole world opposes the U.S. decision.
The U.S. is much weaker today than it was 40 years ago when the 1979 revolution was victorious. The power of the U.S. is on the decline. This is the important point. Most of the world's politicians and global affair analysts believe that the U.S. soft power is worn out. It's been destroyed.
Honestly, I believe that these sanctions that Mr. Trump told that they're going to be back has a significant direct impact on people's life in terms of economy, medical care, and daily expenditures. So it's not that, in reality, it's not that it's not going to have any effect on people's life. So we are experiencing them since they were active, like years ago, and we're still experiencing them.
Medicine is hard to come by because of sanctions. Definitely a person's life who is caring for a patient is affected by these sanctions. Sanctions decrease the quality of life as people now cannot obtain things they used to obtain easily before. It is obvious that it affects people as society is formed by people.
And now let's take a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
More than 100 Catholic bishops in France have gathered in Lourdes to meet for the first time with the victims of clerical sexual abuse as part of their biannual conference. About 30 bishops will be assigned per 2 victims in several working groups. Victims will be able to tell their stories and discuss reparations. The bishop will also discuss the possibility of setting up an independent group of experts to tackle the issue. A 48-year-old Indonesian diver has died while recovering remains of the 189 victims from the Lion Air plane that crashed into the sea on Monday. Siar Chulron Anto was a volunteer with the Search and Rescue Agency and most likely died from decompression. He also helped in rescue missions in Palu following the deadly earthquake and tsunami in September.
They only said that there was a problem on the water due to heavy current and darkness and so on. I heard rumors it had something to do with equipment. My husband had his own equipment, but he didn't bring them at the time.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and the leader of the Eastern Orthodox Church, Bartholomew, have signed an agreement in Istanbul for establishing an independent Orthodox Church in Ukraine. The move is seen as yet another step to distance itself from Moscow. In response, the Russian Orthodox Church broke all ties with the Patriarchate of Constantinople.
The Dominican Republic has inaugurated its embassy in Beijing. The President of the Dominican Republic, Danilo Medina, along with the Foreign Minister Miguel Vargas, were present at the opening ceremony. Earlier, the two countries signed 18 agreements, including on infrastructure, investments, finance, and civil aviation. The Dominican Republic, along with El Salvador and Panama, are the 3 Latin American countries who have recently abandoned their ties with Taiwan and no more recognize it as a sovereign nation.
Today, dear friends, we are not just opening a new embassy. We are opening up a very relevant chapter in the international relationships of the Dominican Republic.
We can proudly say that the China-Dominican relationship is making new progress every day, and the two countries are writing new history. This is due to the wise decision of establishing diplomatic relationship between China and Dominican Republic made by President Xi Jinping and President Medina.
Thousands of Pakistani supporters have gathered for the funeral of cleric Maulana Sami ul Haq, popularly known as the father of the Taliban. 82-year-old priest and politician was killed on Friday by unknown assailants at his residence in Rawalpindi. The motive of his murder is not known yet. Haq was the head of the Haqqani Madarsa, where many Taliban members, including its founder Mullah Omar, had studied. He also had very close ties with the Afghan Taliban. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.